Scaling changes the size of objects or components. To use the Scale tool, you can click its icon in the toolbox or press the R key. Drag the center square to scale the object uniformly on all axes at once. Or drag anywhere along each axis or box to scale along that X, Y, or Z axis. You can also select an axis or box, then middle drag anywhere in the scene to scale along it. To scale the object along a plane, click the plane handle and drag between the two axes you want. Or select a plane handle, then middle drag anywhere in the scene to scale along that plane. You don't even need to click on a box or plane handle directly. Just press the Shift key and middle drag in the direction you want anywhere in the scene to scale the object along that axis. For example, if manipulator display is off in the view, you can use this method to scale an object. To change the size of the manipulators, you can use the plus and minus keys. You can also set the default manipulator size in the Preferences window. Select Manipulators and use the Global Scale slider. Here you can also set the default handle size. And you can choose whether to show the plane handles or not, and how much these handles are offset from the manipulator's center. If you want more precise values than you get with the manipulators, you can use the channel box, which is covered in another video. If you want to change the settings for this Scale tool, double-click its icon, or click the Tool Settings icon in the upper right corner. You can also hold down the R key and click on the object to show the marking menu for the Scale tool. This menu contains the same options that are available in the Tool Settings. The axis orientation is one of the main things to set, which lets you choose a space in which objects are scaled. By default, the Scale tool works in object mode, so the object scales according to its own coordinate system, not the world's. Edit Pivot lets you change the position and/or the orientation of the object's pivot, which changes the axis orientation to custom. When you're transforming objects and components, you often use the manipulators for the Move, Rotate, and Scale tools because they're interactive. But sometimes you need to use exact values, which are tricky to get with the manipulators. There are a few tools in Maya that give you this precision: the channel box, the attribute editor, and the input box on the status line. The channel box is the most commonly used tool for doing this, and also lets you easily key these values if you want to animate them. You can enter values for each channel in their fields, or you can select a channel name, then middle drag anywhere in the view as a virtual slider. If you want to have the same value for multiple channels, drag across to select them, then type in the value and press Enter. You can also use math operations directly in the text boxes as relative operations. For example, enter plus equals 10 to add 10 to the current rotate Z value. Or asterisk equals 0.75 to multiply the current scale values by 0.75. If you need very precise transform values, you can change the level of precision by choosing Edit, Settings, Change Precision. By default, the number of decimals after the period is 3, but you can increase that to have something like 5 decimals. To key the current values of the channels displayed in the channel box, go to the frame you want in the timeline and press S. You can change the channels that are shown in the channel box by choosing Edit Channel Control. Keyable channels are the ones that are displayed in the channel box and keyed when you press S. Move channels from the non-keyable hidden list to the keyable one if you want to expose them for editing and keying. You can also enter values and key channels on the Object's Transform tab in the Attribute Editor, but it's not quite as streamlined as the channel box. However, you can set other transformation options here, such as the rotate order. The input box on the status line is an alternative when the channel box isn't visible. Select one of the Move, Rotate, or Scale tools, then click the icon beside the input box and select either Absolute Transform, where the objects are transformed with absolute values in reference to the scene's origin, or Relative Transform, where the objects are transformed in reference to their current values, so these values are added to that. Click the Input field and type X, Y, and Z values in the appropriate fields. In Maya, there are many ways in which you can select objects. The most basic way is to click the Select Tools icon or press the Q key, and then click on the object. You can do this because Object Mode, which you can see in the status line, is on by default. The other modes are Hierarchy Mode and Component Mode. A quick way to toggle between the object and component modes is to press F8. You can set the selection style for the Select tool in its Tool settings. Just double-click its icon to open it. You can use Marquee, which is the default, or Drag mode. In Drag mode, you just paint the mouse over anything and it gets selected, which is especially useful for selecting components. With Marquee, anything the box touches is selected. If you want to move the marquee area without redrawing it, press the Alt key and drag it to a new position. You can also use the Lasso tool to drag around objects when a marquee rectangle isn't the best shape to use. Anything that the lasso touches is selected. You can press the Shift key to add objects to the selection, but the Shift key also toggles the selection if you click on objects that are already selected. If you don't want to accidentally deselect objects while you're adding to the selection, press Ctrl plus Shift and click or drag. To remove objects from the selection, press the Ctrl key as you click or drag over them. When you select multiple objects, you may notice that the last one selected is always green, while the others are white. The last selected object is known as the key or lead object. Maya changes the color to let you know the order of selection, which it uses for certain operations. For example, when you select objects to create a hierarchy, the green object will be the parent. If you like, you can change this color in the Color Settings window. Click the Active tab and customize the lead object color. To invert the selection of objects, press Ctrl plus Shift plus I or choose Select Inverse. And to isolate selected objects, press Ctrl plus 1 or click the Isolate Selected icon in a view panel, or choose Show Isolate Select View Selected. To select all selectable objects in the scene, press Ctrl plus Shift plus A or choose Select All. Press Alt plus D or choose Deselect All to deselect all objects, or simply click or drag in an empty area of the scene. To select all objects of only that type, such as NURB surfaces, choose an option from the Select All by Type menu. The Object Modes icons also let you filter the selection by type. You can click the Object Type filters to decide exactly what you can or can't select with the Select tools. By default, all options are on, so if you didn't want to be able to select joints in a character, for example, just click its icon to turn it off. You can also right-click on the icon to get more specific on each filter's selections, such as not being able to select NURB surfaces objects. When you can't select scene elements in a view, you can use the outliner to select their nodes. For example, if an object is hidden, select its node and press H to display it in the view again. In a View Panel's Show menu, you can also turn off the selection highlighting completely and then use the outliner to select nodes for the objects. There are different ways to change the appearance of objects in a view panel. You can select most display mode options in a view panel's shading menu or as icons in the panel toolbar. These display options are set per view panel so that even with the same camera selected in multiple views, you can have different display modes for each. To see a bounding box representation of the objects, select Shading Bounding Box. Click the wireframe icon or press 4 for a standard wireframe view. In our scene, the colors of the object's wireframes are taken from the display layers in which they're stored. If you want to change the default line width, open the Preferences window, click Display, and drag the line width slider. Click the Smooth Shade All icon or press 5 to show the object's base material. If Smooth Shade All is active, you can click the default material icon, which overrides other materials and textures with a special version of the Lambert material that is the default in Maya. Click the Wireframe on Shaded icon to keep a wireframe on top of shaded or textured objects. Click the Textured icon or press 6 to show the texture on top of the object's base material. If you don't see the texture, make sure to turn off the default material, which overrides the texture. Click the Light icon or press 7 to show the effects of all lights you have created, which excludes the default scene light. You can also select all lights from the Lighting menu, return to default lighting, and display the effect of only selected lights. The Flat Lighting option uses an ambient light that looks like this if textures are on. If shading is on, the effect is like a constant shader, which is sometimes useful if wireframe on shaded is also on. If you don't want to see the object material's color, just select the default material option. If you want to see through objects, click the X-ray icon. You can also use X-ray for selected components or for only seeing joints in skin skeletons. Once you have set up a view panel as you like, you can choose Shading, Apply Current to All to copy the shading settings from this view to all other views.